Have you ever noticed that the more someone speaks, the less we listen? We live in a world that has turned exposure into a virtue. If you don't share, if you don't explain, you're deemed suspicious. But what if true power lay in the ability not to explain? What if, instead of talking to convince, you learn to stay silent to conquer? This isn't about becoming mute. It's about becoming strategic. It's not about disappearing, but about dominating without needing to show yourself. If this resonated with you, like this post, this reflection might transform the way you exist. Nowadays, everyone talks, shouts about their projects, showcases their intentions, and puts their transparency on display as if it were a virtue. We live in a time where communication has become an obligation. The silent are seen as strange, and those who observe in silence are perceived as threats. But there is a form of silence that is not a weakness. It's a strategy, a weapon. While everyone announces where they want to go, the true player hides their steps in the shadows. They do not seek to dominate through volume, they win through absence. Niccolo Machiavelli mastered this art. One of the most misunderstood figures in political history, he knew. The most effective power doesn't need to explain itself. It operates between the lines. The vulgar crowd is always seduced by appearances, he wrote. And what is speech if not a carefully crafted appearance? Words are storefronts. Silence is a vault. To speak is to strip yourself bare. To stay silent is to remain untamed. In an age of excessive sharing, those who master strategic silence not only protect their position, they conquer what the loud will never reach. They win while others are still talking about winning. Machiavelli wrote that fear demands distance, and distance depends on mystery. A leader who justifies every decision, explains every action, and shares every thought becomes ordinary. The ordinary can never inspire the same respect as the exceptional. Think about that colleague who speaks in every meeting, gives their opinion on everything, even what they don't understand. Eventually, they're just ignored. Their voice becomes the background noise. That friend who shares every detail on social media becomes predictable, and predictability kills interest. The negotiator who can't stand silence, filling it with concessions, gives away their position without even realizing it. The leader who responds to every criticism legitimizes their detractors and diminishes themselves in the eyes of observers. Machiavelli would not view this as authenticity. He'd consider it negligence, a voluntary surrender of power, sharing information without receiving anything in return, speaking out of habit, being transparent to the point of naivety. None of it protects authority. True silence isn't the absence of sound. It's a calculation, a tool, a way of speaking without being deciphered. There are three kinds of silence. The first, the silence that gathers. The fool speaks first. The wise listen. And while the fool reveals their intentions, the wise map out their weaknesses. This silence creates an asymmetry. While everyone else lays bare their thoughts, you quietly build an invisible advantage. He who listens more understands more, and he who understands more governs. The second, the silence that commands respect. Machiavelli knew that power is, in part, about perception, and that mystery commands more than charisma. The more you speak, the more ordinary you become. The more you justify, the smaller you appear. A prince must be both a fox and a lion, Machiavelli wrote. The fox knows when to stay silent, and the lion knows when to roar. There comes a moment when words no longer build, but instead undermine you. At that moment, silence becomes a crown. Silence builds authority because humans cannot tolerate a void. Where words are absent, assumptions take root. And strangely, these assumptions often work in favor of the silent. When a leader speaks sparingly, addressing only what matters and ignoring the noise, every word carries the weight of calculated decision-making. When someone responds only to criticisms that truly matter, not every provocation, what they project is not weakness, it's strength. That is why the most powerful people in any field speak rarely. But when they do, the world listens. The anxious manager tries to justify themselves with lengthy explanations. The confident CEO establishes authority with a few words. The uncertain mind argues excessively. The self-assured mind simply affirms and moves forward. A fragile leader tries to clear their name with every accusation. A confident leader stays above it all. They engage only when it benefits them, and only on their terms. If you want to learn how to wield this kind of silence to your advantage, Stay quiet, observe, and act decisively. If you'd like to dive deeper, click now to take the next step. The third, the silence of ambiguity. The most dangerous silence is that which preserves all interpretations simultaneously. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But this logic extends beyond fear. It applies to any situation where leaving meanings open protects you more than providing a clear answer. When you refuse to clarify, you allow everyone to see what they want: hope or threat, confidence or menace, support or opposition. And in all these interpretations, you retain control. By confirming nothing, you leave everything open. By saying nothing, you shield yourself from everything. Politicians do this when they say, just enough to please everyone, but not enough to commit to anyone. Negotiators do this when they avoid revealing what they truly want. Leaders do this when they present a vision, but keep the method obscure. This isn't deception, it's survival. Recognizing that clarifying too soon limits your reach. As Machiavelli said, politics has nothing to do with morality, and neither does excessive communication. It's a way of tying your hands before the battle. But silence isn't just a tactical tool. It has a profound psychological power, an instinctive influence. It works because it creates a space for projection. Humans hate not knowing, and when they don't know, they invent. What they invent often reveals more about themselves than about you. When you remain silent in key moments, others fill the void with their fears, doubts, and hopes. They fight alone against ghosts you never needed to create. And this is the darkest advantage of silence. It transforms absence into presence and pushes others to battle against themselves. Hope or assumption, that is what silence gives birth to. While others reveal their position, you keep yours hidden, unchanged, unyielding. As Machiavelli observed, men are so simple and so inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will always find someone to deceive. Silence, when well used, doesn't need to deceive. It simply allows others to deceive themselves. This is why experienced interrogators don't pressure, they stay silent. The discomfort of silence triggers confessions that questions alone would never elicit. The same applies to negotiations. Whoever can endure the pause without giving in, dominates. Whoever fills the pause with concessions, loses. Silence also reshapes power dynamics. Those who speak first, speak too much or too fast, appear desperate for approval. Those who listen, who speak later or speak little, take the posture of authority as the one who judges, not the one who pleads. Machiavelli would have understood this. He might have said, "The beloved speaks, the feared observes." And the one who calmly observes leads without raising their voice. Job candidates who ask fewer questions are remembered. Those who oversell themselves are forgotten. In meetings, the quiet voices are taken more seriously than those who fill the time in frantic speech. In conflicts, serene silence disarms far better than any fiery argument. Because silence rewrites the rules, it refuses to seek approval, and that is exactly why it commands respect. But its greatest power lies in mystery, the invisible force born of things left unrevealed. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands, for everyone can see but few can touch. What cannot be fully seen becomes formidable. What is overly exposed becomes ordinary. The person who reveals everything, who justifies everything, shares every thought, every insecurity, every plan, shrinks themselves without realizing it. But the one who speaks sparingly, who guards parts of themselves like forbidden territories, expands their presence. They become more than they are, and that is power. Once, I saw an old craftsman sharpening his blade in silence for hours. He didn't say a word. The apprentices around him murmured, commented, suggested, while he simply sharpened. When he had finished, one single gesture was enough to slice leather like paper. No one forgot that gesture, but no one remembers what others said. If you've stayed this far, it's because you feel something. You feel that you've already spoken too much. You feel ready to protect what hasn't yet been said. Thank you for staying silent with me. Comment below. I protect what silence hides. If this awakens something in you, like and subscribe. This journey is just beginning. There's a video right next to this one that reveals the next level of this truth. I'll meet you there in 5 seconds. This is the refuge of those who feel too much and who only speak when necessary. Maintaining deliberative processes in silence strengthens authority. This isn't manipulative, it's understanding that leadership is built largely through the perception of others, and perception always exceeds reality. What fascinates is never fully revealed. It exists in what is left unsaid, in what is felt but unseen. We live in an age where transparency is hailed as an absolute virtue, and silence as a fault. Be authentic, they tell us. Share your truth, speak always. But Machiavelli would never have fallen for this trap. He understood the danger hidden within excessive promises. A broken word is a necessity of the moment, he wrote. He knew. Clinging to what one has said is to lose freedom in the present. Modern transparency demands this, that we be chained to old versions of ourselves, loyal to things that may no longer hold any meaning today. This isn't integrity. It's self-sabotage disguised as virtue. Machiavelli's approach was never to lie, but to reveal only what was necessary, to share what strengthens you, and to protect what safeguards you. Never seek to conquer by force what can be achieved through strategy, he said. In today's language, this means don't offer through exposure what you could have secured through silence. The trap of transparency is everywhere. At work, it's the impulse to show what isn't ready, to give opinions before understanding, to take positions before listening. In relationships, it's premature confession, emotional exposure without preparation, sharing fragile plans with people who don't know how to carry their weight. Machiavelli wouldn't call this authenticity. He'd call it strategic naivete, a gift of power without return, a sacrifice of self that no one asked for. The overly transparent person becomes predictable, manipulable, and, over time, ordinary. Their qualities, instead of amplifying their influence, diluted. This view challenges the norms of communication in our time, where speaking a lot has become synonymous with value, and revealing oneself is seen as courage. But the Machiavellian communicator doesn't speak to express themselves. They speak to achieve a goal. They don't stay silent out of fear. They stay silent out of choice. And every word they choose not to say is a territory they keep under control. The discipline of silence doesn't require you to become a statue, but to develop the discernment to speak only when speech is sharper than silence. First, practice asymmetry. Before declaring a position, understand the positions of others. Ask questions. Listen carefully to what isn't said. Interpret silences, hesitations, and restrained words. Machiavelli said, "The lion does not protect itself from traps, the fox does." And the fox's cunning begins with listening, with gathering without giving. In negotiations, this approach saves deals. At work, it avoids conflicts. In relationships, it protects your mental health. Then, cultivate strategic ambiguity. This isn't about creating confusion, but about keeping an exit open. Don't say more than necessary. Don't commit too early. Leave room to adjust. Machiavelli advised, "A prince must be slow to believe, slow to act, and never show fear." This slowness is a form of freedom. In leadership, it means indicating the direction, but leaving the path open. In personal relationships, it means respecting the timing of truths. Not every wound needs to be exposed on the first date. And so, you will discover that silence is not absence. It is raw presence. It is you, whole but invisible. And invisibility is a power. Sometimes being too clear is being predictable. In competitive contexts, expressing your commitment to shared goals without revealing the means to achieve them keeps the game in the shadows. While others rush to unveil their strategies, you observe. While they justify, you act. While they promise, you sow doubt. Then comes the third step, developing comfort in silence as a position of power. Most people perceive silence as discomfort, filling the void with words, concessions, or weaknesses disguised as justifications. But the one who learns to inhabit silence dominates the field. This manifests when you state your position and stop, without rushing to soften, nuance, or explain. It appears when, faced with criticism, you listen till the end without interruption and respond not to defend, but to settle the matter. It's evident when a leader makes a decision and lets that decision speak for itself. Strategic silence isn't about being permanently silent. It's about speaking with intention. It's about creating contrast between what is revealed and what remains hidden. And, as Machiavelli wrote, the vulgar crowd is always seduced by appearances, and the world, unfortunately, is mostly made up of vulgar crowds. That's why the one who reveals less stands out more. Their words have weight because they are rare. Their positions draw attention because they are not poured out endlessly, but revealed like flashes of lightning in a dark night. Their influence spreads like an invisible fragrance. But this demands a discipline increasingly rare today: the patience to listen before speaking, the restraint not to reveal everything, even when ego urges you to, and the strategic vision to understand that silence is sometimes the only response that keeps the throne intact. There's a cruel irony in all of this. The greatest masters of this art of invisibility are often unnoticed. We notice those who speak loudly, those who expose themselves, those who market themselves. But those who win in silence are rarely recognized because they never seem to be playing. Perhaps that's why Machiavelli himself has been so misunderstood. His name has become synonymous with cold manipulation, but his vision was deeply human. He understood that influence requires neither shouting nor deception. Sometimes it asks only for one thing: to let others reveal themselves while you remain hidden. In an era of excess, of exhibitionism, of a hunger for attention, the strategy of silence offers something almost subversive. Say less, observe more, reveal selectively and with purpose. Let your results speak louder than any words. Because in the end, those who talk about victory are just talking. Those who truly win have already fallen silent. I remember an old craftsman. He spent hours sharpening his blade in silence while the apprentices around him murmured their opinions. He simply listened. When he was done, a single stroke was enough to slice leather like paper. No one forgot that gesture, but no one remembers what the others said. If you've stayed this far, it's because you feel it. You feel you've already said too much. You feel that it's time to protect what hasn't yet been said. Thank you for staying silent with me, for stepping into this abyss of unspoken words. Comment: I protect what silence hides. Like this video, comment, and subscribe. This journey is just beginning. There's a video right next to this one that reveals the next level of this truth. I'll meet you there in 5 seconds. This is the refuge for those who feel too much and speak only when it is truly necessary.